We are going to begin this hour in Washington, where President Trump is checking off another campaign promise. This time, he has signed an executive order to declassify a trove of government documents related to some historic assassinations. Former President John F. Kennedy, his younger brother, former Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. Now, the president believes their public release will end the mystery surrounding their deaths. All this comes as one of the president's most contentious immigration orders was dealt a big blow on Thursday. A federal judge in Seattle temporarily blocked Mr. Trump's order seeking to end birthright citizenship. The judge called it blatantly unconstitutional. The president said he would appeal the decision. Washington State's Attorney General praised the ruling.
We are thrilled that the court saw the seriousness and the urgency of the complaints and request for a temporary restraining order. This is step one, but to hear the judge from the bench say that in his 40 years as a judge, he has never seen something so blatantly unconstitutional sets the tone for the seriousness of this effort.
In just a few moments, we're going to chat with NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. But first, let's get to our Homeland Security correspondent, Julia Ainsley. Julia, good morning. So let's start with the president's push to try and end birthright citizenship. Tell us more about the federal judge's ruling here. What were the arguments and what happens next?
It was a quick and decisive blow, Joe. We heard yesterday from an 85-year-old judge who was appointed by Ronald Reagan, thought to be a conservative, say that he couldn't even believe that the Justice Department lawyers that were defending this executive order could take the bar and defend something so blatantly unconstitutional. He said it boggled his mind. And just as quickly as they wrapped up those arguments, the judge signed a temporary restraining order that blocks that birthright citizenship order from going into effect. They had until February 19th to make that decision. That's when the executive order would have gone into effect. And he went ahead and made it right away, Joe. So, of course, we can expect the Trump administration to appeal this. It will probably go up to the Supreme Court. Just to back up for a second here about what this would do, the executive order made it so that any child who was born to a mother who was unlawfully or even lawfully but temporarily in the United States could not be a U.S. citizen unless the father was a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. That would mean even people who were here legally on visas could not have children who are U.S. citizens. And also, Trump has said repeatedly the U.S. is the only country that grants birthright citizenship. That is also false because Canada, Mexico, and some countries in South America do it as well. And it's something that's enshrined in the 14th Amendment. And so the lawyers who argued against this on behalf of 22 states and others said that in order for the president to change something like the 14th Amendment, he would need to go through Congress to get another constitutional amendment, which requires a 2/3 vote, and that he could not do it this way, Joe.
All right, let's talk about some other immigration news. On Thursday, we did see ICE agents carry out another immigration raid, this time in Newark, just outside New York City. On Wednesday, we saw something similar in Boston. What can you tell us about this latest operation?
Well, this was a workplace raid, which does change the game officially from what the Biden administration was doing to what this new Trump administration is doing. By and large, the numbers of arrests have not greatly exceeded that of an average day under the Biden administration. For example, they were looking at about 300 arrests a day in September, the latest number for which data is available, the latest month for which data is available from the Biden administration. It was about 280 a day. So it wasn't a huge jump. A workplace raid does change, though, because that is something the Biden administration, by and large, backed off of. We saw workplace raids under the first Trump administration. There's a very legendary raid they did on a Mississippi poultry plant. A workplace raid means that they're not necessarily picking up the worst of the worst criminals. They're picking up undocumented immigrants who are working in this country illegally. It can take them by surprise. And we're hearing harsh blowback from the senators of New Jersey, from the mayor of Newark, saying that this is something that really disrupts their community. When you make people afraid to go to their jobs, afraid to send their children to school, that this is something that they really think that the Trump administration, where they think they've crossed a line. We should say it's not a new line, at least for Trump. We have not yet seen them go into other places, such as sensitive locations where they now say they can go, like schools, hospitals, places of worship. That hasn't happened yet. But this is all part of a strategy for shock and awe, as we understand, something the president promised he would do on mass deportations because they want to make a splash coming in. The thing is, Joe, they don't necessarily have more money. They're trying to expand the power of the federal government, use other federal agencies to make arrests. arrest. So we need to watch exactly to see what changes and what's different going forward. But this, I think, would be the first market change that we've seen from the past administration's practices.
And Julia, I also know you're watching what's happening at the Mexican border, where Mr. Trump has now deployed 1,500 troops as part of his sweeping immigration orders. So what are we actually seeing there, and just what else is the Trump administration planning?
Well, the numbers of migrants who have been encountered crossing between ports of entry, what we would call illegally, has dropped dramatically, almost half from December. And December was already a very low border crossing month. But I think a big thing to point out is that the asylum system, as we know it, Joe, has effectively come to a complete halt. In fact, we have reporting yesterday from places across the southwest border where migrants were being turned back before they could even access legal ports of entry. That has always been an access point under U.S. law where migrants could come, turn themselves in legally, and request asylum if they could show they had a reasonable fear of persecution if they were returned to their home country. These are not people who are trying to sneak into this country or evade apprehension. They're walking up and making their claim. As we understand now, they're being turned back. And since the president turned off that CBP One app set up by the prior administration that allowed migrants to make asylum appointments on their phones, there really is no way for migrants to claim asylum. I think this is something we're going to continue to see play out in lawsuits, Joe. All
right, Julia Ainsley, a lot to cover this morning. Thank you so much. Let's head to the White House now, where Gabe Gutierrez is standing by. Gabe, good morning. So before we get to the present, let's talk a little about the past and this move by President Trump to actually declassify government documents on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King Jr. Tell us, why is he doing it? How soon could they be seen by the public?
Hi there, Joe. Good morning. Well, there are about 5 million JFK files, and the National Archives says about 97% or so have already been released, but it's that last 3% that may hold the most tightly kept secrets. Now, Joe, over the last several decades, there have been a lot of questions and conspiracy theories about whether Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Well, President Trump now saying that everything will be revealed, and in signing this executive order, he's ordering the government files, all of them, for the assassination of JFK, of RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and also Martin Luther King Jr. Now, in terms of timing, it won't happen right away. It won't happen overnight. The JFK files, the government has about 2 weeks to come up with a plan to release them. The files for Martin Luther King Jr. and RFK, that could take about at least a month and a half, Joe.
All right, let's go back to modern times now. Fox News has also released the second part of its interview with President Trump. Among the subjects discussed, the Russia-Ukraine war. We know one of Mr. Trump's campaign promises was to end that war. At one point, he said within 24 hours of taking office. We know that didn't happen, but what is he saying about that war?
Yeah, clearly, and that President Trump had said that before, that he'd end it on day one. Clearly, it hasn't happened. But over the last several days, several of his public statements about Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky have seemed aimed to try and get to some sort of negotiation, to some sort of deal, as he called it. But in that interview you mentioned overnight on Fox News, he had some tough words for President Zelensky. Listen.
Zelensky, I will say this, he wants to settle now. He's had enough. He shouldn't have allowed this to happen either. No. You know, if he's no angel, he shouldn't have allowed this war to happen. We could have made a deal, and it would have been a deal that would have been a nothing deal. I could have made that deal so easily. And Zelensky decided that I want to fight.
Now, President Trump says that he wants to meet immediately with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and he's also calling on China, which he says has power over the situation, to also get involved and get to some sort of an agreement. Joe.
All right, Gabe, another headline on Thursday. The president signed another executive order. This one pardons 23 anti-abortion rights activists, and that's ahead of today's March for Life demonstration along the National Mall. It marks the anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision. We know that he is expected to address those crowds virtually. What else can you tell us about all this?
Oh, yes. So those 23 anti-abortion protesters, their names haven't been released, but the White House says at least some of them are in jail. And certainly this rally that we're set to have today on the National Mall, this is the third one ever since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And this is something that President Trump has talked about extensively, that he picked the judges that overturned Roe v. Wade, even though he says the decision over abortion should now be left up to the states. But by pardoning those 23 23 anti-abortion protesters. He's clearly looking to send a message to anti-abortion, to those who oppose abortion. And at this rally today, as you said, he's expected to speak virtually, but Vice President J.D. Vance is expected to speak in person, Joe.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much. An exhausted Southern California is getting some welcome news this morning. Firefighters say they have finally gained control over most of the wildfires that have destroyed thousands of homes over the last 3 weeks, killing more than 24 people. Now there's a new concern. Los Angeles has more rain forecast for this weekend than it has seen in more than 8 months. And officials warn that could lead to life-threatening mudslides, flash floods, and toxic runoff from charred debris. NBC's Liz Kreutz is in Pacific Palisades with more on these new worries.
Well, hey, Joe. Yeah, firefighters continue to battle multiple brush fires that have been popping up all across Southern California. We've been describing it like a game of whack-a-mole. Firefighters put out one fire and then another one starts. Yesterday, we saw brush fires from Ventura County that forced evacuations of a university there down to San Diego. There was one in La Jolla that forced evacuations in a populated area. Thankfully, they were able to knock that one down quickly. But then there was this border fire that's currently burning down by the border. It's now more than 800 acres. Thankfully, it's in a pretty rural area, but of course, it's still a concern with firefighters just seeing so many fires popping up across the region. The good news is, though, officials are hoping that the changing weather will help with these dry conditions. Like you mentioned, rain is in the forecast for the weekend, which is some good news, but it also does bring some other potential challenges and concerns about possible mudslides from all of this debris here, as well as toxic runoff from this debris. We've been watching as crews have been going around to the different burn scar areas, fortifying the burn scars, try to create a perimeter with concrete barriers to try to keep in that debris to prevent too much toxic debris from getting into the waterways here. But overall, that is some positive news. California, Southern California, now in what experts are calling extreme drought conditions for the first time now in 2 years. It's been months since we've seen rain. President Trump is expected to come here today. He'll arrive this afternoon, and he's planning to visit and survey some of the fire damage in communities like this here in the Pacific Palisades. Governor Newsom has said that he has reached out to the president. They have yet to speak directly, he said, but Governor Newsom says he plans to be there on the tarmac when the president arrives. Joe.
All right, Liz, thank you so much. And meteorologist Michelle Grossman has her eyes on Southern California this morning. Plus, much of the country starting to thaw out a little after that lengthy deep freeze. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, it's a gradual warm up, but we're going to see much better temperatures as we go through the later part of the weekend. Still really cold in spots. That's one of the big weather stories. Of course, the winds easing is another big weather story, and the rain moving in for Southern California Saturday and also Sunday. We'll talk more about that. Snowy conditions today through the Intermountain West, and it is a cold start in portions of the Southeast. We're looking at temperatures below freezing in many, many spots. Let's start with the fire weather threat. The good news is we do have a relaxed wind today. We have pretty gusty winds right now. That's going to continue to ease throughout the day. So we still do have 10 million under red flag warnings. That will be expired, though, by 10 o'clock local time. Unfortunately, there still is an elevated risk because the air is still so dry and because the ground is still so dry. So if a fire does ignite, we could see that fire expanding as we go throughout today. Places like Santa Clarita, Temecula, San Diego, over to Ramona as well. But look, as we head into the weekend, there's that area of low pressure moving from the north to the south. It's going to bring snow into the upper elevations of the mountains. It's going to bring that lower elevation rain. The good news is we're not so concerned right now about localized flash flooding or the mudslides because it looks like this rain is going to come in a nice increment. We're going to see a ½ inch to an inch. Then Sunday we'll see a little bit more, but we're going to continue to watch that throughout the weekend in case we get any flare-ups with any of those rains. So we could see some localized flooding with those fresh burn scars, but hopefully we're going to see the rain kind of coming in those nice, stable amounts. Now, as we look towards Saturday, we do have a flash flood risk in place, just in case Santa Barbara to Santa Clarita, Los Angeles, down to places in extreme Southern California, San Bernardino as well. That continues on Sunday. We're going to see the rain starting in Southern California later in the evening and then expanding into Sunday. So this is what Sunday looks like, a marginal risk still for LA, to Temecula down to San Diego, where we're seeing those burn areas. Then as we go throughout the rest of the weekend, we're going to see more rain on Monday as well. Look at this. We haven't talked about this for quite a while. This is good news. We have winter alerts throughout portions of the southwest because we have that area of low pressure moving in. So that's going to bring in some more moisture, and that's going to be really good news. All right, slightly milder. We're going to say that in quotes because it is still really cold outside. We're looking at temperatures in the 20s today in Detroit. That's 9 degrees below normal. But look at Dodge City finally warming up to average, above average in Dodge City, 50 degrees. That's 4 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. It's still really chilly, though, in the Gulf Coast into the southeast. Tampa, 55 degrees, 46 in Charleston, and 30 degrees in Boston. That's 5 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. Another chilly day, but again milder in New York City, getting closer, ever so close to that freezing mark, 30 degrees, 8 degrees below normal. Still in the 50s in Jacksonville, looking better. Tampa, 62, and 62 in Houston, 59. That's right where you're supposed to be on Sunday in Dallas. And then as we go into next week, Joe, look at this. We're going to be into the 40s, 41 by next Tuesday in New York City. Getting there slow but sure.
Shorts weather if you're from Minnesota, I'll tell you, right? All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.